Hi everybody. In the previous session, we had gone through the definition of listening, the difference between listening and hearing, and other aspects of listening. Today, we go through the essentials of listening and the types of listeners. Now, as we take up listening as a casual activity, the various essentials of listening are also ignored by us at random. Now, as the person studying communication skills or soft skills, let us take up listening seriously as an activity or a tool to be a better communicator. Now it's the time to understand the essentials of listening. What are the essentials for a listener? Here, the other word also, intention. Intention only makes the activity necessity for us, and we look for other essentials to make that activity a complete one. The first essential to be a good listener is discover your field of interest. Generally, people are very interested in listening the songs or the dances or the various rhythmic entertaining activities. So you listen to the songs various ways, either through videos or listening to them at random when traveling or relaxing at home. So you remember the lyrics of the songs much better than your lessons. Whether you may refuse that, you don't do much of singing, the wording remains much better than the study content because you listen to it very intently, very interestingly. In the same way, when we listen to the classes, when the subject interests you, you remember the details of that subject much better than the other subject which you don't like. So, firstly, we need to identify our field of interest, then extend the same interest to the other subjects where our levels of interest is low. So here sometimes the interest is born and sometimes we need to create interest. So to be a good listener, we need to identify which aspects we like to listen more and where to create interest for that listening activity. Now the second is grasp and understand the content. Sometimes when we listen, then it becomes difficult to understand. It is not your failure as a listener. It is only that we fail to decode. So in order to increase our levels of decoding, we need to gather higher levels of vocabulary. You need to create more content of information in your mind so that you will be understanding the content that is gathered during listening activity. So, whenever the time permits you, try to gather more information related to your subjects so that you could easily understand when the subjects are taught in the class. Next, remain calm. Anger hampers and inhibits information. So here, remain calm. We don't take part in any activity during the class, but many things run on your mind. The scolding that you received before starting to the college, it could be your mother, your father, or the disturbance within you because you did not complete the task of homework. And some aspects you have units of your work remained. So all these create a disturbance on your mind. So even when you are sitting in the classroom doing nothing, just listening, the decoding fails and this increases further uneasiness in your mind. So that's the reason the first word, stay calm, is uttered as the essential of good listening. So, when you stay calm, it becomes easy for your mind to decode the words or the sentences that are received by your ears. And second thing, anger hampers. So, when you are angry, you fail to understand the other person's words. You fail to appreciate the intention behind the words. So, this further results in miscommunication. So, stay calm and let not the anger disturb your emotional understanding. Next, we must be open-minded to accept new ideas and information that is completely new to you. Why should we be open-minded? Because as we grow up, the levels of information changes. You might have learned algebra with a plus b whole square that results in the answer a square plus 2ab plus b square. Now you are going through various unimaginable levels of mathematics that teaches you theory of probability. It is that always the same thing should remain the same as a question or as an answer also. So many possibilities could happen as a theory of probability. So you cannot say that one question should contain one answer. It should not have so many answers as an answer. In our real life also, a person won't remain the same who responds to you lovingly all the time. The person may show anger to you. The person may act bad with you. The same person may praise you. So, we must be open-minded without giving place to emotions when we are listening to others. As a subject part also, you must be open-minded while receiving new ideas as a part of your engineering chemistry or engineering physics in the further studies of your further years as core subjects. So, this part of being open-minded to accept new ideas and information is one of the essentials of listening skills. Now we come to the next one. Rephrase and summarize the speaker's ideas. Rephrase is the way we store the information as a memory. As we had previously gone through the various stages of listening, remembering is also one of the stages. This is what you learnt in your previous classes as a student is sure to be there. It is necessary to be there so that you could move further with the levels of information that are imparted to you in the classrooms. And here you rephrase that received information and summarize the speaker's ideas. When the class is over, you must give a thought to the activity that had been performed in the classroom and you rephrase that taught information and summarize that as that day's class activity and store it in your memory. This comes handy whenever the situation demands you. As a student, it is the situation of examination hall that demands your remembering power that was taught in the class to be presented as an answer to the question. So, my dears, this essentials of listening skill includes rephrasing and summarizing activity also. Now we come to the last one. Avoid distractions. So while listening, suddenly you may remember your favorite song lyric. And that plays with a louder manner on your mind and distracts your listening rhythm that is going on uninterrupted in the classroom. During this distraction, you may miss very important information that was necessary for you to answer a question or to be stored as an important information. So, you are the person who would be allowing those distractions. You are the same person who would be strictly telling to yourself, don't be a hearing person, but a listening person. So all these are the essentials of listening skill to make a person a good listener with good levels of listening skill. Next, we move over to the types of listeners. Here it is another important information that listening is not just a casual activity but a very important tool of communication. So, as a part of that information, this aspect of the types of listeners is to be imparted to you as a classroom information. So here we come across different types of listeners. The first one is non-listener, second one is superficial listener, and we have logical listeners, and finally active listeners. So totally we have 4 types of listeners. Now we treat each type of listener and understand what are the traits that make a person that particular type of listeners. First, it is non-listeners. Here the prefix non has a magical attachment with each word. We have the persons who are vegetarians. To impart the information that you eat the meat of various eatable animals, we have this phrase non-vegetarian. That means you don't eat vegetarian. No, you eat vegetarian as well as the meat aspect of food items. Here, the non-listeners does not mean you listen, but it is the other way, who don't listen at all. So, that is the magic of or the confusing aspect of English language. Now here we take up the meaning. The attachment of non, the prefix of non means not at all a listener. So when you are not listening, what is that you are doing? We get back to the previous topic, hearing and listening. The activity that is done with focus results in listening. So here a non-listener don't focus at all. The non-listeners don't focus on the listening information, but their focus is on some other aspect, so they result to be a person with the activity of hearing. They don't put any effort to listen, or they don't pay attention. Now, you might identify so many amongst you and sometimes you yourself being a non-listener in the classroom. At that time, the faculty cautions you. Stay quiet, pay attention. These are the phrases used by us to grab your attention. So, here we understand who is a non-listener. Next type, superficial listener. Here, the person listens only for the basic meaning of the spoken words. What is meant by basic meaning of the spoken words? Here, the person gathers the sounds, the words, the sentences uttered by the speaker. But intentionally or unintentionally, this information fails to reach the decoding aspect. Even they decode also, partial decoding is done. What is meant by partial decoding? They fail to notice the body language of the speaker, the voice tone of the words uttered by the speaker, and other subtle aspects of communication. What is meant by this? The added information given as a PPT or a video or even a slide where the information is presented as a graph or a life cycle or some diagram. So when we are listening, the notifying of the body language adds some more information to the decoding ability of the listener. When we observe the voice tone though the words are nicely spoken, the anger reflected by the voice levels, whether harshly spoken or smoothly spoken, or with a glare accompanied by the sweet voice. So all these form the complete activity of decoding. So failing to observe these aspects is intentionally done by the listener, where they have given the motto to their mind, I don't want to listen, or I don't want to understand the complete meaning of the words spoken by the person. Then automatically the words reach the mind of the person without going through the complete activity of decoding. So superficial listeners are in a way acting, just listening. They are acting that activity, not completing the purpose of listening. Thirdly, we have logical listeners. Logical listeners, yes, they hear and they hear to comprehend the meaning of the actual words. They don't understand or the intent behind the words or the meaning which they grab as a part of their listening activity. Here, the listeners make an effort to hear and to comprehend. But this itself is not complete that decodes the message in a proper way. You need to be a person with open mind without attaching any meaning from your side to the listened word. This is what we also discussed as the essentials of listening. Be open-minded, stay calm. Sometimes the listener becomes agitated because the person is expecting scolding words from the speaker. So, logical listeners are the persons who are already listening with intentions attached to their decoding method. So, here the logical listener sees the words from his or her point of view only. They refuse to understand or focus on the point of view of the speaker. So, the failure of listening results in broken bonds or clashes in conversation, or finally resulting in heated arguments. Now we come to the fourth type of listeners, that is active listeners. This type of listeners are the best among all the four listeners mentioned in the types of listeners. Here, they have the highest level of listening skills. Here, they understand both the meaning of the words as well as the intention of the speaker who happen to message the encoded one to the listener. These active listeners, they have higher levels of listening. That is, they accrue higher levels of focus, and they sit for hours together listening with no undisturbed or no disturbed levels of hearing. They don't lack attention. They continuously decode without failure of understanding the intention behind the speaker's words or sentences or the information imparted in the classroom. They pay attention to the body language. They pay attention to the voice tone. They pay attention to the all-round aspects of the essentials of listening. They impart interest to their listening activity. They have intention. They impart attention, and they decode patiently to reach the intention of the speaker. This results in best levels of listening. Most of the time, The students that listen intently are the favorite students of the faculty. Not only in the classroom, in the parties you attend, in the discussions that you go through among your friend circle. Most of the time, the best appreciated person is the person who listens patiently to the other persons. But it is not that you always should remain a listener. But being a good listener is good at all levels of life. How to respond is decided by the best levels of listening. Your avatar as a speaker is most of the time decided by your being subtle as a listener. So, never take listening as a stupid activity. Most of the time, people love to speak, but they don't understand the importance of speaking also. So, my suggestion is to accrue vocabulary of high levels or even good levels. Previously, I told you, gather 4 words per day so that you could impart them in your communication in the classroom or even at home or with friends or faculty, anywhere, anytime. The more you gather through listening, the vocabulary makes you more equipped when you need to perform as a speaker. Here I have given you some simple words: gathered, agreed, randomly, jabbing. The first 2 words are used by you people randomly. That means without much thinking. Gathered is gathering the words. But we use that the people are gathered. That means they are standing collectively at one place or they are sitting collectively at one place without any pre-planning. Gather your books. That means the books that are scattered on the desk. You are supposed to collect them and be ready for the next activity, either going out of the classroom or sitting steady for the activity that does not need any bookish information. So, gathered is a word. It is a verb, of course, but sometimes it is done intentionally and sometimes it is done unintentionally, accidentally. Now coming to the word agreed. Here, agreed is a casual term. It doesn't have voluntary or involuntary. In both circumstances, you can use it. So the words though you may have been using since your childhood, now you try to know their applicability. This is also necessary, and this information is gathered through serious and sincere listening. Now when we come to the word randomly and jabbing, these are very much used by the people who are into a profession of using English language in their day-to-day lives. So, as a faculty, we use these words randomly, without a plan or a purpose. No. Every activity or the word spoken in the classroom is not a random one. It is a purposeful one, specified one, intentional one. And jabbing, this word you might not have come across at all because it means poking someone with a pointed object. Pointed object means that comes specifically to our mind is a knife. No, not at all with a knife. You may jab your friend with the point of your pen that you are using for writing or with a pencil. So that is grabbing the attention of your friend unseen by others. Most of the time this you do when the class lecture is going on. Something pops upon your mind as a comment of humor. So here jabbing is a fun activity of poking your friend or a person with something that is pointed with a slight movement, not a sharp, jerky movement that harms the other person. So, when this poking is done seriously with a very sharp, pointed object, we call it stabbing. So, we must know which word to be used at which occasion so that you are impressing the people around you with your proper fluency of the language. So here, listening is the first aspect that makes you understand the applicability of the vocabulary. That's the reason the previous suggestions were also given to use the thesaurus, to listen to the personality development videos, or watch the TEDx videos, or any other reasonable speaking activity, so that you will be noting down some important unused words and include them in your vocabulary. So don't take up listening as a casual activity. It is a serious tool and the foundation tool for other three remaining speaking, reading, and writing skills of our soft skills. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.